I think it's pretty safe to assume that most of us could probably agree that in order to be happy, content, and fulfilled in life, it's probably very necessary to experience growth, at least to some degree or another, right? But uh, but we all know these people who don't experience exponential strides. You know, the people that just don't care much, so all they're concerned about is meeting the status quo. But they seem generally pretty miserable. Now, it's kind of hard to judge the human heart. Even though people might do this, we don't really know what they're thinking or what they're feeling unless they tell us. But they have dreams, aspirations, ambitions, but maybe they've kind of gone off track. And I want to talk about that a little bit today, about growth itself and how you can experience it, but what you need to watch out for. Okay? When you're a child and you're concerned about growth, it's because you're looking up at your brothers and sisters and your parents, and they're all taller than you, right? And you know that this must be how life works. I'm going to get bigger, everybody else does. And so your parents take a pencil or they take a marker and they draw notches on the wall or the door casing to show from year to year just how much you've grown. And it's an indicator that things are moving along as they should, that you're okay, that things are fine. And that gives you some sense of normalcy. And that's the way it should be, right? And when you're an adult and you get to be older, you tend to want to grow smaller, don't you? You start thinking, well, this isn't normal. I don't feel good. I need to lose some weight. So if I just grow smaller, everything would be great. And so you start counting the pounds and how much they're dropping, if you can even make that happen. And you think as long as you see the numbers go down, if you're growing smaller, everything's fine, everything's great, right? Well, not necessarily so. You take out a gym membership because you want to build your body. And you just all you're focused on is growing for growth's sake. Because if you're bigger and people see that, they can see that you have achieved some level of success, right? Well, not necessarily so. At what cost have you done it? You could have done it the right way, but you have to think there's also a wrong way to do these things. You open up a business, you want to grow, you want to swell your bank account, you want to live out your dream, but you have to grow your clientele, you have to grow your customer base, right? And all that matters are the numbers. All that matters is how much is going into the cash register, if anybody even does that anymore, right? Everything's electronic now, but you get my gist, okay? But all that matters is the numbers. It indicates growth, and growth means you're on the upward climb, right? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all good. Here's what I'm talking about. There's a quote by Edward Abbey, and he said, "Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell." Think about that. Growth for the sake of growth itself is the ideology of a cancer cell. So growth is not always good, as you can see here. The basic definition of cancer is the abnormal reproduction of white blood cells. The key word here is abnormal, because white blood cells in and of themselves isn't bad. The reproduction of them isn't necessarily wrong. But when you have an abnormal reproduction of the white blood cells, that you can see that there's a problem, there's an indicator there that something needs to be checked out. No one ever gets cancer and sees it spreading and thinks to themselves, well, at least it's growing. That's oftentimes how we think of growth in every other area of our life, whether it's personal growth in our character and dealing with our inner turmoils and coming to grips with things and being at peace with ourselves, or it's opening a business, or it's building our body, or losing weight. Whatever direction growth is going in, you have to be careful, because not all growth is good. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's unpack that somewhat. I do believe that growth, and whatever step you take, it should be gradual. It should be gradual. Because if you take on too much, you can't handle the load, you can't handle the capacity. Before you know it, you're out of your depths. You have to be careful about how fast you grow in whichever direction you're moving. So growth should be gradual so that it can be sustainable. Okay? Number two here, not that I'm numbering these necessarily, but growth should not be something that compromises you as a person, your integrity, your resolve, your mission. Okay? Don't let it compromise you. If you become so fixated on growth for growth's sake, you might do anything to make that happen. And that could destroy you. You know what happens when things go awry in terms of growth? When things don't grow the right way, there's just a small illustration. Things mutate. In nature, mutations generally don't survive. The reason why is because they either destroy themselves or they destroy their host. So be careful about how fast you grow. Be careful about compromising yourself when you do grow. Okay, so let's talk about well, let me give you one more example before I forget. Because I think this is quite applicable. If you plant a tree in your yard, you visualize that you want it to grow very tall and provide shade, and it attracts pretty birds and all sorts of things, right? You have this vision of a tree, what you want from it. You go to the nursery, you pick it out, you dig a hole in your yard, you plant the right kind of soil in there, and you provide the nutrients. And if a tree begins to grow in the wrong direction, what do you have to do? Well, you've seen what people do, and you have to do it early. You have to manage this wisely. You drive stakes into the ground, you tie strings around it while it's still small enough to be able to do that, and you train it back to true, which is straight up and down. So you do have to manage this wisely. Okay, so there are 6 things I want to talk about that I think will take you down the path of proper growth. If that's the right way to term it. So here's what I've written down. Here's what I've taken time to think of, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, or whether I should have added something else, or just give me your thoughts and your opinions, because you may know more about this than I do. Okay, so here's what I think. And this is because I've experienced growth in my life in different ways, and in other ways not so much. But here's what I've gleaned from all of this. Number 1, plant thoughtfully. Plan thoughtfully. That means you need to have a strategy. You need to visualize. Whenever you set out to experience growth in whatever it is you're pursuing, whether it's growing your business, whether it's building your body, whether it's growing as a human being, just in your character development, whatever it is. You need to have a strategy. You need to visualize. If you just go in hoping that things will just fall from the sky and go your way, you're not going to last very long. So you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan. You need to strategize. You need to visualize. But you kind of need to know what it is you want. Number 2, you need to nurture the details. Because as you sit and think about these things, there will be details that crop up. It's important to write them down. It's important to know what you want, what you need to do. But be very careful about just checking them off. If you're only concerned about checking off each detail because you think it's just a requisite item that you need to take care of, then you'll just kind of breeze over them. But you need to be very concerned about every detail and working each one out to its fullest and taking care of them. Taking care of them very carefully. Embrace them. Enjoy them, love them, because all those things really matter. It's like building a house of cards. You've got to pay attention to each card that you place. You can't just assume that you can rush through it. You need to take care of the details, so nurture them. You need to labor consistently. Labor consistently. If you approach something like a hobby, then you'll reach the level of a hobbyist. If you look at something you really want deeply and pursue it like it's a job, whether it's a part-time job, it's something you do on the side. If you really pursue it and labor after it consistently, you're going to get somewhere. But if you just do things when you feel like them and just wait for the feeling to arise, you're going to find yourself falling short. You need to have a plan to apply yourself on a daily basis. Okay, continually educate yourself. This is the fourth item in all of this. Continually educate yourself. That doesn't mean that you just go to school. You might need to, but you have to remember that your education never stops. You need to keep your nose in books and in videos and whatever it is that approaches the subject matter or the objective that you're trying to reach. You need to continue to educate yourself with these things and not make it someone else's responsibility and not just make it a requirement that you've fulfilled. It needs to be an ongoing process. Number 5, manage your expectations. It's not always going to be easy. There are times it's going to be hard. But if you labor consistently and understand there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, growth is not always going to be the same. There's going to be dips and there's going to be rises. But you have to not, just don't throw in the towel. Manage your expectations and be okay with that. As long as you know that you're doing what you ought to be doing, you should be fine. Then remember why you do what you do. That's the 6th point here. Remember why you do what you do. Here's why I say this is so important, why this is so important to me at least. Because when I've had a lot of things I pursue in life. I do this YouTube channel. I have a family. And this is not in any order, by the way, but I have a family. I play the piano. I work out. I read a lot. There's a lot of things I have goals for. There's a lot of things I'm trying to reach a high level in. Okay, but never forget why you do what you do. When I started this YouTube channel, I kind of did it for just to find out what would happen and to share my thoughts and to hopefully reach out and help other people. But there are times I had to admit when I become very concerned about growth for the sake of growth. And it becomes discouraging. And, and luckily I haven't gone too far with this, but I know there are people who will do anything for the sake of growth itself. Here's the thing, the public knows, the people know when you're doing that. And it doesn't look good. It's not appealing in every way. People know when you sold out. And if you do this, when you start jumping through any hoop and you'll start doing anything, you'll know that you've compromised your integrity. You won't be happy with yourself. You'll still be miserable. You can be too rich. And you can have too much, and the numbers don't always reflect success in the way that you had dreamed of it. You'll grow quite disenchanted with where you find yourself. Don't let your growth lead to corruption. Be happy with the journey. Enjoy what you're doing, and if you can't enjoy what you're doing, that might be an indicator that maybe you've missed a step or you've forgotten who you are and why you started doing what you're doing. And maybe it's something you need to really focus on and just step back, take a deep breath, and think about these things. Well, guys, I hope that's helped. Hope it's meant something to you. These are things that I have to keep tabs on myself and remind myself of on a regular basis because it's all too easy on our quest to make a difference, to lose our way. And that's almost worse than really having no compulsion to move at all in some ways, because you'll find yourself on the wrong side of the track. I hope that doesn't happen to you. So let me know what you thought of this and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. Guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Make sure you see the description below for other things, and I'll see you in the flip-flop. Be wise.